Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we'll talk about oil independence. Will we see it in our lifetime? We'll be talking to an oil and gas insider next.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, we here in Texas are very proud of our oil. We know we can crank it out. And sometimes you have an administration that is helping us, and sometimes you have an administration that's hurting oil and gas. To talk about that today, War Room Media, and he's an oil and gas insider. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, well, let's talk about Trump's oil policies versus Biden's oil policies.
Well, okay, so the Trump administration ran this idea that we're going to open up drilling on federal lands, really kind of roll back the restrictions. And that obviously from an oil and gas perspective was good, but you had to go back to the operation, which changed the policy on exporting oil. So you kind of had it teed up for the Trump administration. Now the Biden administration has obviously put more regulations on oil and gas. They've kind of poo-pooed on the federal land drilling as far as new permits. But the reality is that U.S. energy independence, as it's been phrased, is a myth. It says the type of oil that we produce has to be blended with foreign oil. And so we have to import oil regardless of how much oil production we have. So you have two separate things. We can have less dependence on foreign oil. That's a good thing. But we're going to be dependent on foreign oil for my lifetime, your life, some magical way to retool refineries and to only use our oil, which I'm not aware of anyone who actually thinks it's possible.
Wow. You know, I've talked to a lot of people in oil and gas, and I've never heard that before. And this man knows a little something about this. He's the host of several podcasts. I'm going to just run down a few of them. Inside the War Room, Texas Oil and Gas Podcast, Energy Week Podcast, and Don't Let the Facts Podcast. So when do you have time to sleep?
Well, I got 4 kids, so, so sleeping, it's so to your point, a lot of people don't say that, and that's because it's not politically the right thing to say. If you're a Trump Republican, you don't want to say it because it sounds like you're going against Trump. And if you're against Biden, then you want to be pounding this narrative home because you want to increase production. I make very, very clear, I'm a free market libertarian. So my thoughts on how about Trump or Biden, and that has nothing to do with the quality of the oil coming out of the ground.
Sure.
And so when you look at the quality of the oil, it just is what it is. And so we have to import and blend, and we will have to. I don't know. It's quite frustrating because it leads the public to believe that Biden is restricting us from this certain thing. Biden's doing bad things to oil and gas. I'm not here to dispute our dependency on foreign oil. That's just not true.
Okay, if we were less dependent on foreign oil, would there be fewer wars fought in the Middle East? Because it seems like most of the wars, oil.
Right. So, okay, how long we got? I mean, generally speaking, my belief is that the more you have between countries, the less likely you are to have war because we're mutually invested in each other, right? And so the more interwoven your economies are, the less likely you are to have war. As it pertains to war right now, if you look at the Middle East, the U.S. foreign policy is a disaster. So are we pro-humanitarian rights or are we not? So we're okay with what the Saudis do, but not what the Iranians do. We're mad at Afghanistan, but we can work with Iraq. Yes, there's definitely oil that has pushed foreign policy, but it's also not entirely clear what our foreign policy is. And so to answer the question, if we were less dependent, I don't know, because I'm not entirely sure why we do the things we do now, because it's hypocrisy from whatever administration you want to talk about. They're not consistent in their messaging.
We're going to show some pictures and some videos of some of your various podcasts. You have talked to some of the biggest names in oil and gas. I mean, you're always there on the front line getting current information. What are they saying about the price at the pump? Are we about to see our normal kind of retreat during the fall?
Yeah, and so we just inside the war room just had on Mark Rossano talking about this. So the summer driving season is ending. So now Goldman Sachs thinks we're going to 80, but I think if you look at the market sentiment right now, I'm a little confused of where we're at, because summer driving season will end, so demand should drop some. On top of that, what you should see is that you're talking about schools. There's a big battle about who's going to school, when they're going to school, how many kids are going to school, work from home. All of those things are still going on. So it would seem that the market should soften, but we have inflation. Inflation's not going anywhere. So you have all these factors. And so I think that I'm a little bit hesitant to say where I think prices will firmly be at. But it wouldn't surprise me to see the prices retreat. But the other thing to consider is WTI right now when we're recording is about $65. That's a great price for U.S. producers. It's not too high where they're going to get crazy. It's not too low. It does impact us at the pump, but all things being equal, 65 envision for U.S. right now.
And the good news is that in the last decade, they've gotten really efficient at getting oil out of the ground. And so they can make more money at $65 a barrel than they could a decade ago, can't they?
Absolutely. So they've been able to drill longer laterals. They talked about their spacing issues. They worked through a lot of stuff. The question that we're going to be faced with the next 10 to 20 years is how much tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 is really important. It can't be diminished. As you talk about two economies that are tied at the hip, these two economies are. And so we want relations with China to be well. Now, if you want to criticize China, say that you don't like communism, I'm right there with you. But what we do is, we have our calls with the foundation to tell them, hey, this is what we think, this is what we're hearing on the ground, these are the problems we want to tackle as an organization. And on top of that, we're trying to improve in our different areas of a specialty.
What do you see for the next few years under Biden with U.S.-China relations?
I think we're at a point now in the U.S. where we have to realize that China, they are a superpower, and to deny that, and it can't do.